Welcome back. All right, so I'll qualify this as a news of the day video, although it's one topic, which usually the news of the day videos are not. It's one topic, and yet it sort of leads into another discussion. So the question has been asked: what happened to Jeff Marek? Jeff Marek was at the draft for day one, and then for day two he wasn't, and hadn't been seen or heard from since. It wasn't on the last edition of 32 Thoughts, and also didn't do his own show the last couple episodes before the summer hiatus. So what happened? So, according to the Athletics reporting, and it sounds like this is well sourced, the reality is Jeff Marek and the Sportsnet crew were being given the draft picks before the GMs would go up and make those picks. So moments before, as the GM's walking up, you get told, yeah, so they're picking this guy. I'm not sure why you leak that information out, because you're giving that to people who can leak that information to other people. And the NHL is terrible at keeping secrets. They're absolutely awful at keeping secrets. And maybe this is part of the reason why. But the problem is that apparently Marek was taking that information and passing it on to a friend. And then there were a few draft picks that leaked out on Twitter/X. And so Marek got questioned. Now, Marek was questioned by the Nevada Gaming Control Board and NHL Security, apparently, and this is according to the article on The Athletic. I'll link to it in the description below the video, for allegedly leaking draft picks moments before they were announced. And so this is where it gets a little dodgy. Like, I know people are I've seen the argument on both sides that the NHL is being too heavy-handed. This is a beloved, member of the broadcast community who has been awesome with fans and players for many years, and he has. Marek's a great guy. I appreciate Marek's thoughts on things, and definitely really enjoyed him and Elliot together and what they had going. But the NHL and Sportsnet have both declined to comment on this story at this time. But I mean, it's going to come out. Either Marek will release a statement, or somebody's going to release a statement somewhere. Because once this reaches into, the whole gossip territory, eventually somebody's got to answer for what's going on. But the question then becomes one of how much control the NHL has over broadcast rights holders. And I know Steve Dangle's talked about this, and that's why I don't talk a lot about it, because it feels like he's talking about that. I know there's a crossover between my audience and his. And obviously, having worked for Sportsnet himself, he would have a much better view and much more information on this than what I have. But the information that's always been out there is that the National Hockey League is very tough on rights holders. This is why when people say, THG, the NHL, they support his videos and they give him money, and that's the only way that he could have jerseys like that. No. If the NHL had some sort of financial investment in this channel, I would be controlled as to what I could say. This video right now would not be getting made. The videos I've done on CTE over the years would not have gotten made. At the very least, if I had made them, I would have probably got an email or a phone call and been told, you probably need to take that down. The NHL has apparently been very vocal about, you got to kind of fall in line. And, well, fall in line might be overstating it a little bit, but basically, don't criticize the league. And come to us about these stories before you're going to do them, kind of thing, right? So the question then becomes, did the NHL force Sportsnet to fire Marek? From what's being reported, very likely yes. I can't say for sure yes, because nobody's commented, but if the NHL had nothing to do with it, I think we'd see the NHL coming out and saying, yeah, we know that person's no longer with Sportsnet, but we had nothing to do with it. You'd have to ask them, which is not what happened. They just said no comment, right? And then the question too, and this is what I will pass along to people: does leaking picks reflect poorly on Marek? My answer to that is it depends on who you're leaking it to. There have been times where I've had information before it's publicly known, and I've had sources come to me and say, this is going to happen tomorrow, and I will tell my wife, because I know she's not going to tell anybody. And there's no way that I'm going to lose that source, and there's no way that I'm going to get in trouble after. Because to me, it's not worth losing a source. It's not worth losing that information just to put out a video and just to go, hey, look, I broke this. Hey, remember when I broke? Because then you've kind of bit your nose off to spite your face. Look what I did. I got this information out there. Oh, and then I lost my source, so now I can't do that again. So it's not worth it. To me, it's not worth it. If I was being given draft picks moments before, let's say while we're doing the live stream, I'm getting texts saying, this guy's going seventh, this guy's going eighth, this guy's going ninth. I'm going to ignore them. I'm going to ignore them because I wouldn't feel right about it. And it's one of those things. There have been times where I've been like, man, I could do a video right now because I got this information, but I won't do it. It's not going to happen because I feel like it's so to me, if Marek's leaking this information to just some guy who nobody knows and isn't releasing that information anywhere else, I don't think it's a big deal. But if Marek's providing this information to somebody who then leaks it publicly, which is going to affect viewership of the draft, because why are you going to wait around watching the draft when somebody's giving you the draft picks? Yeah, that's a problem. That is absolutely a problem. So I don't think that this should have warranted being fired, but I also look at it as if this is what happened, Marek probably should have known better. So I agree with the people who say, the NHL doesn't, lay the hammer down when they should. And in this case, it doesn't feel like it warrants getting a guy fired. I will agree with that. I will agree that he probably shouldn't have been fired, but there's also the he should have known better. And usually, there's some sort of a non-disclosure in there with when you're a broadcaster, and there's just certain codes of conduct that are just baked in, right? Now, I also wanted to get into this part of it because it has to be discussed. The main reason here that leaking draft picks is going to be seen as bad is the potential for a gambling side of it. And then, somebody might make some money off getting those picks in early. Now, one report I saw said, and this was back in 2023, so it was a little over a year ago, that during a Toronto Maple Leafs game, there were 9 minutes of gambling ads. That's just the ads. That is not including during play. That is not including between periods. That is not including before the game. What I mean is, when broadcasters sit there and they're like, hey, here's the odds. Here's where their odds are at right now. Here's where they are. Hey, get your money in. Come on, you got another $50 there burning a hole in your pocket. Give it to us. Actually, just give it over to this betting app, and you'll never see it again. But it's frustrating for me watching hockey where it feels like it's a gambling ad that just happens to feature 3 periods of hockey. And there are times where it feels that way. And this is something that's been talked about as well, that eventually these gambling companies, because they have such a huge financial investment in the league through advertising and sponsorships, they're going to have more say. They're going to have more control. So this is something that's been talked about too, that, they say, upper body injury, lower body injury. Eventually these gambling companies are going to say, you know what? You guys have to start giving us actual information on injuries, because we've got people betting one way or the other. And if we don't have accurate information on injuries, that's going to affect our ability to provide a really good user experience kind of thing, right? That our gamblers have a right to that information, which, I mean, if they do that eventually, I take that as kind of a slap in the face that we fans who've watched the sport for decades, we don't deserve that information, but for gambling money reasons, they deserve the information. And so part of the reason why you're going to see Marek out here is, so let's just say this happens, draft picks are getting leaked, and nothing happens to Jeff Marek. Then the question would get asked of, okay, if he's leaking out that information, is there anything else that he might be leaking out? And I'm not saying that he is. I'm just saying that question then gets asked, and it's a slippery slope from there. What other information might he be getting about trades and contracts and everything else that he might be? And I understand that comes out all the time, and there's always all that speculation. But what other NHL information might he get that he might leak out? So again, I think that the fact that the NHL and their broadcasters are so intertwined with the gambling companies means that the Nevada Gaming Control Board is going to have a little more say in things. And they're going to be able to report things to the National Hockey League, and then things are going to happen. And so for us as fans who've been following the game for a long time, things that we feel like should get punished a little more than they are, sometimes things that are on the ice, sometimes things that are off, they're not getting punished as much. And then you see a broadcaster who's generally beloved. I know not everybody loves Jeff Marek, because that's not a thing. But it just, it's not going to sit well with his fans and people who like and support him, and for people who really don't like the gambling aspect of where hockey is right now. And I understand. This is why I don't talk about odds when I'm doing previews every day, and I don't give any of the gambling stuff at all during previews. I'll talk about Stanley Cup odds here and there just because it's interesting to see where those are. But I never have promoted any of that. So I understand on some level why Sportsnet would let Marek go for giving out insider information that might be against his contract. I understand why the NHL would be upset and might lean on Sportsnet to do so. But I also feel kind of bad for Marek because it feels like there are leaks everywhere when it comes to the National Hockey League. And it does kind of have a sacrificial lamb kind of feeling to it because now for the next reporter who gets those draft picks early, they're going to think twice about leaking that information. And again, this is from The Athletic. This is from sources in the NHL and sources that are close, which means this information leaked out too. So that's the world we live in now, where just there are no secrets. You can try. Definitely, Sportsnet didn't say a word about him being gone. Marek didn't say a word about being gone initially, but internet sleuths picked it up, and now here we are. People start asking around, and you find out that information because people are going to know. But let me know your thoughts about, first off, and again, I understand that, the NHL doesn't take all these other things seriously. Right. But again, just in isolation, if somebody's leaking out information they're not supposed to, there has to be a consequence. I think just a suspension would work for a broadcaster for something like that. But again, I'm not sure how their contract is worded, and this may very well have violated his contract. So we'll see. But let me know your thoughts. Do hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And again, it just feels like with gambling and the amount of money that's being spent by gambling companies on NHL advertising and sponsorships, this very likely is going to be more and more of a story as time goes on. But let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.